Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this wonderful Monday afternoon. And the first true week of NBA basketball has just concluded. And this is the first weekend where we've actually been able to have nothing but basketball news and nothing but basketball games. So that's more or less what's going to be the overall topic of these segments. So the first segment, I'm actually going to do an MVP ladder. So I'm going to be talking about players who I think should be up top on the MVP ladder and all the way down through the top 10. So that's what we're going to do in this first segment. Then in this second segment, we're going to focus on the Lakers and the fact that the Lakers have started out 3-0 for the first time since Kobe Bryant was on the squad. So it was a long time ago. I believe it was around 2010, 2011 when they had this incredible start to the season. And we're just going to go ahead and talk about that in the second segment. Then in the third segment, we're going to recap all of the games on Friday because there were a lot of them. And if I were to group every single one of them into a just one weekend recap, it wouldn't be enough. Like, we wouldn't have enough time for that. And then in the fourth segment, I'll recap all of the NBA games that went down over this weekend as well. So for the third segment, it's going to be specifically the Friday games. And then in the fourth segment, it's going to be the games that happened Saturday and as well as yesterday. So we also have a special fifth segment I reveal at the end of the fourth segment, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Spoiler alert, it is we're bringing back an old segment that I used to do when the NBA is actually in season. So before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody that we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether you guys have a hot take, whether you guys have a burning question, something that you've just been dying to share. We are all ears. And if you really want your comment or question to get noticed, then I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. Either or, they really help the show. They make it much more interactive between myself and you guys. So let's go right ahead and get into this MVP ladder. So I have a graphic right here showing not all the 10 players, but I do have the players who I think should be in the top 3 for the MVP and their contention and whether or not I believe they should win. So let's start off with a huge bang. The number one, or at least the player that I feel like is in the number one position for winning the MVP right now, is one and only Anthony Davis. Now, like I said, and like I've been saying several times, the NBA MVP, it's not necessarily who the best player is. It's the best player on the best team. And right now, Anthony Davis is the best player on the best team in the Western Conference, just based off of last week. So I understand this is rather early doing an MVP ladder, but this is only based off of the last week's games. And so far, the Lakers are 3-0, as I've mentioned before. Anthony Davis has been ridiculous in every single one of the games that he's played. He's had 3 30-point games to start this season. Last game, he ended the game with 31 points, 9 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks, going 10 for 15 from the field. He's also the first player in the NBA to reach 100 points in this season. Like, his performance has been incredibly dominant, and the team, as a result, has also been incredibly dominant. And JJ Redick, even before the season started, he said that the key to this offense and the key to this 5-out is to try and unlock Anthony Davis and try to bring him to his best and utmost potential. And here it is. This is exactly what we were expecting coming in from Anthony Davis. I've said numerous times that Anthony Davis is a rather maddeningly frustrating player, and there are times where he plays incredibly well, but then there are other times where he doesn't play well, and it almost seems like he needs to get forced into playing well. Like, it's almost as if he needs people to tell him to start trying hard instead of just trying hard. But here, this season has been completely different. He's been by far one of the most impressive players on the Lakers, aside from LeBron, but more on LeBron in the next segment. I'm sure you guys were expecting that. But his performance has been nothing short of amazing, and he's a big reason why the Lakers are 3-0, and a big reason why, and that's the reason why he's number one on this list, in my opinion. And you could make the argument that he should be a close second to the next guy on this list, Jason Tatum. Now, again, with Jason Tatum, what he's been doing with the Celtics, I will say, I understand that the Celtics, they just have a much better team, that as opposed to the Lakers team, where it's essentially, well, more or less, it's LeBron, Anthony Davis, along with a couple of role players. But he is different. Jason Tatum in this season has been phenomenal so far, and he's also a big reason as to why the Celtics are in the position that they're in. He's had 37 points in 2 of the last 3 games that he's played, and he's just a completely different, it seems like he's a completely different player now. His averages for this season so far, 33 points, 54% from the field, 48% from 3, while averaging 6 rebounds and 6 assists as well. Like, this offseason has not been a joke to Jason Tatum. In fact, he's actually been the joke for a lot of people in the offseason. And this is sort of what happens when you make fun of an NBA player when you don't, like, it really depends on who you make fun of. But most of the time, players like Jason Tatum, they're going to take that criticism and they're going to use that criticism to motivate them into this next season, and that's exactly what he's been doing, and he's like to the T, he's been doing that. And he's been disrespected a lot in the offseason, mainly because like a lot of people just don't really think that a lot of people hone it against him that he wasn't the Eastern Conference Finals MVP or the Finals MVP. So he's really on a mission to try and prove that he is the star of this team and that he is the best player on this team. Like, that's really what it seems like. It's just, and not to mention the media adding fuel to the fire on, like, with Jason Tatum not playing in the Olympics also had something to do about it. So I blame all of the fans and all of the fanatics that made fun of Jason Tatum, because that criticism is enabling him to do things that we expect him to do, but he hasn't really been that consistent at doing. And it's as a player, as a person who would much rather see the Lakers end up winning it all, this is very, very maddening. Now, the next player on this MVP ladder is probably going to shock all of you at first, but it is Chet Holmgren. Now, I do know that the Thunder, they also have another MVP caliber player in SGA. He's going to be directly below Chet Holmgren in this ranking. But the reason why I have Chet Holmgren at number 1 is mainly because of his averages. I mean, he's averaging 23 points. Again, you might not think that's really impressive, but he's shooting 56% from the field, acquiring 13 rebounds along with that, 3 assists, a steal, and 4 blocks so far in this season. Last game, he ended the game with 6 blocks against the Hawks. And he's been incredibly efficient so far to start this season. It would be a crime to not put him in the top 3 based off of these performances. Not to mention, he's probably, if he's not going to win MVP, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins Most Improved Player, because he went from averaging 16 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and almost a steal, to averaging 23 points, 13 rebounds, and a steal, along with 4 blocks. Like, that is a huge improvement from what he's done last season. And last season, being runner-up to Rookie of the Year is not that bad. It's really not that bad. Granted, he didn't receive a vote for winning Rookie of the Year, but that's also because Victor Wembanyama was just Victor Wembanyama. There was nobody that was going to win Rookie of the Year over Victor Wembanyama last season. Like, there was no way. But again, this season is young, so just keep in mind that these MVP rankings are most likely to change. Now, at number 4, we have SGA. Obviously, SGA, he has to be included on this list as well. He's on one of the very few teams that is undefeated so far in this season. They did beat the Denver Nuggets, and then towards the weekend and on the weekend, they ended up beating the Chicago Bulls and the Hawks. Now, while the Bulls and the Hawks might not be contenders in the Eastern Conference, that still doesn't deny the fact that SGA and the Oklahoma City Thunder are 3-0. So we'll have to wait towards later on in the season to see which of the two players between Chet and SGA remain the most consistent. Now, the next player that I have on my MVP ladder that is probably going to really shock a lot of you is Trae Young. Trae Young is going to be number 5 on this list. Now, a lot of people, Trae Young is one of the most disrespected athletes of this time, I will say that. There were a lot of people that were thinking that someone like Tyrese Halliburton is better than Trae Young. To that, I say, ha, and look at the performances that they've had recently, but more on that later. But in the last 2 games, over the span of the season so far, Trae Young has averaged 30 points, 46% from the field, 10 assists, 4 rebounds, and 1.7 steals. He also recorded 4 steals against the Charlotte Hornets. Now, the last game against the Thunder was a bit of a dud for him, and he also ended the game with 10 turnovers. The defense on OKC was just absolutely ridiculous against the Hawks. But still, this is just based off of the first few games, so I have to put him at number 5 just based off of the fact that they are 2-1, and Trae Young is a big reason why. Next player on this list is Stephen Curry. He's being 6 on the MVP voting. And, I mean, Steph Curry is basically, as of right now, the only star left on the Golden State Warriors. And because of that, he's going to get a little bit of a boost into his MVP ladder and his MVP ranking. Now, his averages so far aren't really all that impressive. 18 points, 41% from the field, 40% from 3, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, along with 2 steals. So again, not really that impressive, but I do expect the points production to increase a lot better and as the season progresses. And the rest of the players that are below on this list, again, this is just based off of pure stats and pure team position in the NBA right now. So it's very early, so don't get upset if there's somebody on this list that you expect to not be on this list later on in the future, because that's most likely going to happen. And the reason why I say that is because the next player on this list is Derek White. Now, I understand I recently put Jason Tatum on this list, and Jason Tatum is by far the best player on the Boston Celtics, just given his position and given how he's been playing. But Derek White, compared to every other star that's been playing right now, and again, team record is a very, very big part of these MVP rankings, he's been arguably, again, it's an argument, second or maybe even the third best player on the Boston Celtics, and a big reason why the Celtics have had this much success. He's averaging 20 points, 52% from the field, 43% from 3, along with 4 rebounds and 3 assists. It's a little bit more efficient than Jaylen Brown, despite the fact that Jaylen Brown has been having a little bit more production than Derek White in this past week in terms of games played and things like that. But still, not having a loss on your resume so far is a very key factor as to these MVP rankings, in my opinion. And also it goes down to personal individual performances, but still your team record is the most important thing. Next, we're going to speed run through this. Next is Ivica Zubac, and then under that is Jarrett Allen and Buddy Hield. Now, again, these are based off of team record and how they've been performing, which is why these last 3 players actually, they aren't as high in the ranking. Mainly because, I don't really feel like their production is going to last throughout the rest of the season, but I cannot deny their team record and the impact that they've had on their team through these runs and through the games that they've ended up winning. And the Clippers actually started to shock me in some of these games that they ended up winning. In fact, I picked them to lose in a lot of these games, but that has not been the case. A big part of that is because of Zubac. And not to mention Buddy Hield also being like a little bit in the lower half of the MVP of my MVP list. It's really like he's been playing very, very well. And Jarrett Allen was basically like, someone I had to pick somebody, and so I just decided to pick Jarrett Allen. And I do think Donovan Mitchell is going to be better than him this season, but as of right now, that's where I'd put him. So those are my MVP rankings. Those are my MVP standings. Let me know what you guys think of them in the comments right now. And with that out of the way, we can go ahead and go into our break. And then I'm going to focus on talking about the Lakers win over the weekend. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, we are going to be talking about the Lakers and their previous games that they ended up winning over the weekend. And it's a very big deal because a lot of people weren't expecting the Lakers to be this good and to have such a ridiculous start to the season. So we're going to focus on that in the second segment. Before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody that we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show. Whether you guys have a hot take, burning question, something that you've just been dying to share, we're all ears. And if you really want your comment or question to get noticed, then I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box and you can send in your comments and or donations. That way, either or really help the show, make it much more interactive between myself and you guys. So let's go right ahead and get into this second segment where we focus on the Lakers being 3-0. This is the first time that they've been 3-0 since Kobe Bryant. And like I said in the first segment, one of the biggest reasons as to why they ended up being 3-0 is because of the peak performance and MVP caliber performance coming in from Anthony Davis. And also the fact that Darvin Ham is no longer their head coach. It is absolutely baffling just how good this Lakers team is without Darvin Ham as their coach. Just how much that they've been held back by Darvin Ham is criminal. It is absolutely ridiculous how often they've been held back. And it should also be noted, the Bucks aren't really doing much better now that they have Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham as their coaches. They've actually lost in 2 of the games that I expected them to win in. So clearly, Darvin Ham is a big problem and a coach that you just don't want on your team. It's really, it's almost apparent now. In fact, I can make the argument that it is apparent now because, again, the Lakers, they have not had such a successful start in a season since Kobe Bryant and in 2010. That was a very long time ago. And ever since they got JJ Redick as the coach, boom, here comes the success. Like, this immediately, like, I know I'm going to jump the gun on this, but LeBron, every single year that he started 2-0, has not won a championship, but has made the finals. So I really don't see. I expect a very deep playoff run coming in from these Lakers this season with JJ Redick as their coach. Like, the effects are clear. I'm sure a lot of you guys thought I was overreacting. I am not. It is clear cut that this Lakers team is a much more different team than what they were last year. And LeBron James, in the most recent game against the Kings, ended with 32 points, 14 rebounds, and 10 assists. The oldest player to ever record a triple-double in NBA history. The oldest player to ever record a 30-point triple-double in NBA history. Not to mention, he ended up becoming the first player ever to score 15-plus points, get 5-plus rebounds, get 5-plus assists, and shoot 100% from the field in a quarter. And he did that in the fourth. The most important quarter in any basketball game. He did that in the fourth quarter. If that doesn't spell clutch, if that doesn't spell the greatest player on the history of basketball, then I don't know what does. You have to argue with a wall. Like, there is just absolutely no argument at this point. And last night in the fourth quarter, year 22, LeBron James, he ended the game scoring 16 points in 2 minutes and 59 seconds. Before this season, the highest scoring game in year 22 was 17 points by Vince Carter. So, I'm gonna repeat that again. LeBron in the fourth quarter, year 22, 16 points in 2 minutes and 59 seconds. Before LeBron did that, the most points scored in the 22nd season of an NBA player was 17 points by Vince Carter. LeBron basically almost broke that record in 1 quarter of play. And it was barely even 1 quarter because, again, he scored those points in 2 minutes, almost 3. He is the greatest basketball player to ever exist. There is zero argument about that. Absolutely none. It also goes to show just how pitiful Darvin Ham was as the coach. Now, let's actually talk about the games themselves. So, the Phoenix Suns game, it ended up taking place on Friday. Now, the Lakers, they did not really have a good start in this game. The Phoenix Suns were up by, I want to say, around 15 points at around the first quarter, going into the second and late into the second. And it seemed like the Lakers were going to get their first loss, but JJ Redick had other plans about that. There was a timeout that was called when the team was on a run, and the Lakers slowly started to claw their way back up to the point where they ended up holding the lead going into the third. Actually, not going into the third, but going into the third. They ended up making the game rather close. And then in the next half, they outscored Phoenix 35-24. Now, Devin Booker did not really play well in this game, at least from what I've seen. He was rather inconsistent. He did end the game with 23 points, but he did shoot 9 for 21 from the field. So the Suns' shots, they really just weren't falling for them in this game. But despite this, the Suns still shot 45% from 3 as a team and 51% from the field as a team. So it's not like the Suns were really playing bad. It's just the Lakers, they were playing that much better. Anthony Davis, he ended the game with 35, 8, and 4, along with 2 blocks, and he also shot 11 for 18 from the field. Austin Reeves also played really well in this game. 26 points, 8 for 12 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, while also recording 8 assists along with 4 rebounds. This team is dangerous. LeBron didn't really have as much of a dominant performance as you'd expect in this game. 21 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds. But he more than made up for it in the next game against the Kings. D'Lo was pitiful against the Suns, by the way. 5 points, 5 assists, 2 rebounds. And he ended up going 1 for 6 from the field. He might be the X factor in this postseason and a big detriment in the postseason if he doesn't get it together. Now, against the Kings, LeBron and Anthony Davis, this was the LeBron and Anthony Davis caliber performance that I was expecting. And on top of that, they also had some significant help from the rest of the lineup and the rest of the rotation. Aside from LeBron and Anthony Davis scoring 30 points, Roy Hachimura ended up scoring 18, 9, and 3. Austin Reeves ended the game 16, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. D'Lo also ended with 16 points and recorded 5 assists along with 4 rebounds with that. Now, LeBron in this game, as I mentioned before, 32-point triple-double, the oldest player to ever record a triple-double, the oldest player to ever record a 30-point triple-double in the history of basketball. Like, what can't he do? What can't he do? He shot 12 for 22 from the field, which is just above 50%, and Anthony Davis ended the game shooting 10 for 15, super efficient, and also shot 10 for 13 from the line. Now, the rest of the Lakers, they were very, very solid. Again, the Lakers shot 41% from 3 and 52% from the field. This is also Anthony Davis's first ever win against Domantas Sabonis. And it's not like the Kings really played that bad in this matchup either. De'Aaron Fox ended the game with 28 points and 10 assists. DeRozan ended the game with 23 points and 3 assists. And Sabonis ended with a 29-point triple-double, 29 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists along with that as well. The problem was, again, the lack of three-pointers. Now, they did end up taking more three-pointers than the Lakers, but they did not end up making more Actually, no, they did make more three-pointers than the Lakers. Excuse me. So, the big issue in this game, at least from the key takeaway that I got, is they were more or less the same. It's just towards the end of the game and towards the final minutes of this game, the Lakers ended up hitting more field goals than the Kings than what they needed to. But again, this all stems back to the three-point shooting, in my opinion. While they did shoot well as a team, individually they did not really shoot that well. I mean, De'Aaron Fox went 3 for 10 from 3. Malik Monk, 2 for 7 from 3. Keegan Murray, 2 for 7 from 3 as well. Trey Lyles, 1 of 6 from 3. And DeMar DeRozan only took 3 three-pointers. Of course, it's DeMar. What do we expect? And again, this Kings team is 0-2 to start this season. So this might be really bad for the Kings going into the future. But that's all that I really have to say about the Lakers, and that's the big recap that we have with the Lakers. So now we're going to go ahead and recap the rest of the games that happened on Friday and talk about how accurate my predictions were. So I'll be right back after this short break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be looking at talking about the games that went down on Friday and recapping just how accurate my predictions were and whether I ended up getting them right, whether I ended up getting them wrong, and the teams that ended up winning in this matchup, of course. So I already talked about the Lakers beating the Suns. They ended up, I picked the Lakers to win this game, and I had full confidence in the offense. I had full confidence in LeBron and Anthony Davis, and they completely delivered. So I'm not really going to talk about that game all that much, but based off of the Suns' performance, I actually didn't really talk about the Suns in this game. Kevin Durant ended with 30 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. It just wasn't enough to beat the Lakers. Bradley Beal ended with 15 points, 9 assists as well, and didn't really shoot that efficiently, 6 for 14 from the field. Same thing with Devin Booker, did not really shoot all that efficient either from the field, and that was one of the big reasons why the game ended the way that it did, mainly because they ended up going on a slump when they really, really didn't need to go on a slump and when it was really needed of them to perform. So that's really all that I have to say about that game for Phoenix. Now, the next game that I have on this list is the Nets going up against the Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic. Now, the Magic, I picked the Magic to win this game, and they did not disappoint. They won 116 to 101. Paolo Banchero ended the game with 15 points, 9 assists, and 6 rebounds. Didn't really have much of a dominant performance as I thought. However, he did get aided from Franz Wagner, who ended the game with 29 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. And he didn't shoot that many threes either in this matchup. He ended up going 10 for 19 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3, and still ended up recording 29 points. It was a fantastic game coming in from Franz Wagner. Not to mention, Moritz Wagner ended up going 7 for 8 from the field with 18 points and 1 of 2 from 3. Now, the Brooklyn Nets, in this matchup, obviously Cam Thomas was the leading scorer. He's been the leading scorer for the Nets for a pretty considerable amount of time. 7 for 17 from the field, however, not really that efficient. Dennis Schroeder, 7 for 12, 20 points. And Dorian Finney-Smith ended with 6 for 10 from the field, along with 15 points. Cameron Johnson did not really have that good of a game in this matchup, 4 for 12, 2 of 10 from 3, but it does happen. I did not really expect the Nets to win at all this weekend. They ended up shocking me. That's some big foreshadowing. And really, not much that needs to be said, because in this game, I totally expected these results. Now, the Knicks against the Pacers. Now, I picked the Knicks, and I stuck with that pick. I was a little bit lenient because I had no idea how this game was going to go, but the Knicks ended up prevailing, and I will say the scoreboard and the score of this game definitely shocked me in this matchup. The Knicks ended up winning 123 to 98. Josh Hart ended the game with 20 points and 10 rebounds. Mikal Bridges, ended the game with 21 points and 5 assists as well. He also shot 8 for 12 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3. So maybe he's figured out his new jump shot. We'll see. I have no idea. Jalen Brunson, he ended the game with 26 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, going 10 for 19 from the field. And Karl Anthony Towns ended the game with 21 points, 5 for 11 from the field, along with 15 rebounds to go with that. So in the starting lineup, 4 players on the Knicks ended up scoring 20 points or more. And really, when you have that starting lineup playing as well as they are, you really don't need that much production coming in from the bench, especially when the Pacers were playing abysmal tonight. They were absolutely horrible. Now, at an individual standpoint, Benedict Mathurin ended up going 8 for 13 with 20 points. Miles Turner ended the game with 13 points, 5 of 9. And Pascal Siakam ended 5 for 11 with 12 points. Now, they shot 3 for 30 from 3. That is not going to have you win a game at all in this league. Going 3 for 30 and missing practically every single three-pointer that you took. And the key takeaway in this matchup, Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton ended the game with 0. That's right. 0 points. 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 rebound. And he went 0 for 8 from 3 and 0 for 7 from 3. 0 for 8 from the field, excuse me. I'm talking like this because that's where my microphone is, and I need to make sure that you guys hear that. So all of you people that were saying that Tyrese Halliburton is better than Trae Young, where are you guys at now? Because Halliburton played horribly. This is Tyrese Halliburton. He had a little bit of a streak last season, but that did not mean that he was better than Trae Young, who's shown consistency. And I'm straight up laughing to the bank with this performance because Halliburton is not the best point guard in the NBA. He's not better than Trae Young. He's not better than LaMelo Ball. He's not a top 10 point guard. I'm sorry, but actually, he's in the bottom part of the top 10, but still, people were overrating him way too much last season. He is not that guy. And just letting you guys know. 0 points is absolutely ridiculous coming in from someone who's supposed to be a true point guard in the NBA. And people seriously thought he was better than Trae Young. Come on. Now, next game on this list, Warriors matched up against the Jazz. I expected the Warriors to easily beat the Jazz. They won 127-86. Steph Curry ended the game with 20 points. Andrew Wiggins ended the game with 10 points and 13 rebounds to go along with that. And off the bench, Buddy Hield in 20 minutes scored 27 points and also recorded 7 for 9 from 3. This system with Buddy Hield is absolutely incredible, and it's very, very dangerous. And while I will say that this was against non-contending teams, I'd still worry about Buddy Hield from outside the three-point line. But so far, these Warriors have been they have been playing pretty well, so far. Obviously, this is some foreshadowing to what happened last weekend, but a lot of Warriors fans, they're thinking that they're contenders just based off of these performances against non-playoff teams. To that, I say, ha, you guys are very funny. Your time has already expired. But aside from that, I mean, the Jazz, they played absolutely abysmal in this game. Nobody scored 20 points in this matchup for the Jazz. The best scorer was John Collins with 14 points. And, I mean, the rest of the team, they shot really, really poorly. 9 for 42 from the three-point line. That's not going to have you win games, especially against the Golden State Warriors, who love to shoot the three and have everybody shoot the three ball. They shot 20 for 50. When a team is making 23 pointers and you're making only 9, you're not going to win that game. So, next matchup, the Raptors, they ended up matching up against the 76ers. I predicted that if Paul George was playing in this game, then the 76ers would win. Paul George, in fact, did not play in this game for the 76ers. And because of that, I picked the Toronto Raptors to end up winning this game, and I ended up being right. The Raptors ended up winning 115-107. Kelly Oubre Jr. for the 76ers ended the game with 28 points, which is very, very efficient. And it's very good, and he also shot 9 for 17, but it still wasn't enough. Tyrese Maxey, I don't know what's up with Maxey, but he's like turned into Kobe Bryant in this season so far, taking so many shots. I don't think he's taken less than 20 shots at all these past few games. He shot 6 for 23 from the field, 2 for 12 from 3, and ended with 24 points. Now, he did end up with more points than shot attempts, but still, 6 for 23 is is not that good. And 2 for 12 from 3 is also not that good. Again, 76ers ended up making only 9 3-pointers in this matchup. When you're only making 9 threes, it's really difficult to win. But the game was rather close because the Raptors themselves didn't shoot that well from 3 either. They shot 6 for 23 from 3. The big difference here was the lack of star power, in my opinion, and the fact that Tyrese Maxey was ball hogging a lot of the shots. And, I mean, he took 23 shots. That's a lot of shot attempts for one player. And to only have 24 points to show for it is less than ideal. And I understand that, he doesn't have Paul George or Joel Embiid to really help him, and, he doesn't really rely on anyone else to give the ball. I totally understand that, but still, this kind of, if you're going to take 23 shots, you should at least score, a considerable amount. And I mean, 2 for 12 from 3 is also really, really bad. Now, the next game, the Cavs, they ended up easily beating the Pistons 113-101. I'm not going to talk about this game that much because I totally expected this coming in from the Cavs. Jared Allen ended 17-11. Donovan Mitchell and Dean Wade ended up scoring 19 points, and Garland ended with 13. Now, for the Pistons side, Cade Cunningham continues to drop 30 points and continues to lose because his team is just not that good. So, again, not really going to talk about this game that much because we are a little low on time, as well as the fact that, I totally expected this outcome, and all of you definitely did. Now, the Hawks ended up beating the Hornets in a very intense game between Trae Young and LaMelo Ball. Trae Young ended 38 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, and LaMelo Ball ended with 34 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. So it was a point guard battle between these two, and I'm just going to say it, LaMelo Ball is probably better than Anthony Edwards. Probably. I'd pick LaMelo Ball if I were to choose between one of the two. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Miles Bridges in this game ended with 27 points as well. And Nick Richards ended the game with 12 points and 13 rebounds. Now, again, this was a very close game. Both teams played really well, and it really came down to the wire in this matchup. Now, the number 1 pick in the draft, Zachary Rasacher, ended the game with 5 points, but nobody is going to really focus on that because a lot of people are more focused on Bronny James and his performance. So Rookie of the Year, at this point, it's still up for grabs for who's going to win Rookie of the Year. He also shot 1 of 5 from field, so not really that efficient. Now, the Pelicans, they ended up beating the Trailblazers on a game-winning block from Zion Williamson. Zion ended with 16 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists. CJ McCollum ended with 20 points, and Brandon Ingram ended with 21 points. Now, for the Trailblazers, Jeremy Grant ended with 34 points. Fernie Simmons ended the game with 24 points, and DeAndre Ayton ended with 10 points and 15 rebounds. Again, I'm skimming through a lot of this because I don't really have a lot of time for this. Now, the two games that shocked me were the Houston Rockets against the Memphis Grizzlies and the Bulls against the Milwaukee Bucks. I picked the Grizzlies to win in this matchup. They ended up losing in a blowout, 128-108 in this matchup against Houston. And Sengun in this game had 16 points, 15 rebounds. Jalen Green ended this game with 22 points. Jabari Smith Jr. ended with 14 points and 16 rebounds. Dylan Brooks ended with 18. Everybody was in double figures for the starting lineup. And for the Grizzlies, it wasn't the only real star of this game. Actually, the two stars were Ja Morant and Desmond Bane. Ja ended with 24 points, but only 2 assists to show for it. And Desmond Bane ended with 17 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, a better all-around game, but still just wasn't enough to beat the Houston Rockets in this matchup. The rest of the bench for the Memphis Grizzlies is looking a little bit questionable. Jalen Wells shot 3 for 14 from the field for only 8 points. And Zach Edey, however you pronounce his name, I still haven't figured that out, so I apologize. He ended the game 6 for 10 with 13 points. So far, just based off of this last few weeks and these last few performances, he looks like the player that's going to end up winning Rookie of the Year. But again, it is still all up for grabs. Shepherd in this matchup did not really play well. He only scored 6 points, and so far this season, he's only been averaging 3 points, 1 rebound, and 2 assists. Obviously, that's not going to get you Rookie of the Year. And the Bucks losing to the Bulls. This was another one that I did not expect, but then again, I should know better because Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham are two coaches on the Milwaukee Bucks. Damian Lillard ended with 28 points. Giannis ended with 38 points and 11 rebounds, but it still wasn't enough for this team to prevail against the Bulls, where Kobe White ended the game with 35 points, Zach LaVine ended with 25 points, and Vucevic ended with 22 points and 10 rebounds. And Giddey also ended the game with 17 points, 9 assists, and 6 rebounds. They did shoot very well from 3 compared to the Bucks, who did not shoot very well from 3. And that's really the key difference between those two players. Now, I skimmed through a lot of it, and I skimmed through a lot of what I wanted to talk about because we are out of time. So we're going to go ahead and go into the fourth segment where I recap the rest of the games that happened over this weekend. So Saturday and Sunday. Stay tuned if you guys are interested.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And today, in this fourth segment, we are going to go ahead and recap the games that happened over the weekend. I'm going to do it quickly just because we are rather short on time. And the trend of me always picking, always two teams that I pick end up losing has ended on Saturday. Unfortunately, as it is. There were 3 teams that ended up losing that I didn't expect to lose. Now, we'll talk about the big one, which was the Clippers beating the Denver Nuggets. Now, I really didn't expect this coming in from Denver, and I did not expect such a great performance coming in from Norman Powell in this game, who ended the game with 37 points. And it was really a very close game all the way down to the wire. The Clippers, they ended up rallying towards the end of the fourth to hold their lead in the end, James Harden ended with 23 points and 16 assists. And Ivica Zubac ended the game with 24 points and 15 rebounds. Now, that was really the only production that the Clippers needed in order to prevail against the Denver Nuggets, because the only player that really played solid in this game and really played very well in this game, the two players actually, were Jokic and Jamal Murray. Now, Jokic ended the game with 41 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. But again, it really wasn't enough for this team and for this Clippers team, which is very, very surprising. Jamal Murray ended the game with 22 points, and he shot 7 for 14 from the field, which is rather efficient. But when you have Aaron Gordon going 3 for 10 and Michael Porter Jr. going 4 for 13, that is less than ideal for winning a game. And not to mention the biggest problem, I think, with the Denver Nuggets right now being Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook went 0 for 8 in this game. So far, in the last 2 games the Denver Nuggets played, Russell Westbrook has only made 2 shots. 2! So in 2 games, he's made 2 shots. That is bad. That is really, really bad, really inefficient, and that is just hurting this team and dragging this team down to the full potential that everyone knows that they can be at. The team lacks three-point shooting, and that really says a lot when they shot 14 for 35 from 3. But you cannot deny just how much Russell Westbrook, it's not all Russell Westbrook's fault. I'm not here to blame it all on Russell Westbrook. But 2 shots in 2 games? Like, really? That is extreme levels of inefficiency coming from a former MVP and a player that a lot of people really respect. It's really just like, what is that? Like, there's no other way that I could describe it other than, what is that? I've never seen such inefficiency before. Like, what? But that's besides the point. Now, that was, again, another big reason why I thought they ended up losing was because they really just could not hold on to the lead. And they ended up turning the ball over more times than they would like in this matchup. And it was a really close game. It was a really close game up until the very end. It's just, I really did not expect the Nuggets to lose to the Clippers. I also didn't expect the Mavericks to lose to the Phoenix Suns. The Mavs ended up losing 102 to 114 against Phoenix. And, I mean, a 40-point game coming in from Luka Doncic, 40 points, 10 rebounds, it still wasn't enough. Kyrie Irving ended the game with 22 points. Klay Thompson ended the game with 19 points, which is, very solid. But Kyrie shot 9 for 22. And Klay shot pretty efficiently. He didn't shoot that efficient from 3, 5 for 12. But still, I really did not expect this coming in from the Suns. And the rest of the bench was less than productive for Dallas. PJ Washington ended 2 for 10, 1 of 5 from 3. Najee Marshall ended 1 for 5, 0 for 2 from 3. And Jaden Hardy ended 0 for 4 from the field and 0 for 3 from 3. Now on Phoenix's side, Kevin Durant ended with 31 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. Devin Booker ended with 21 points. And what's crazy about this game is that Bradley Beal did not participate and they still ended up winning. Now, you can make the argument that it was because those two players know how to share the ball a little bit better than adding Bradley Beal into the mix, considering how long they've played with each other so far. But again, this was a result that I just wasn't expecting coming in from the Dallas Mavericks. Now, I already talked about the Lakers beating the Kings, so that was one game that I ended up getting right. The Cavs ended up beating the Wizards. I'm not really going to talk about that game because easily we expected the Cavs to win. They won 135 to 116. The Miami Heat, they ended up beating the Hornets 114 to 106. Not really going to talk much about this game, mainly because we are low on time. Celtics ended up beating the Pistons, obviously. Thunder ended up beating the Bulls, also rather obvious. The Thunder ended up winning 114 to 95 in this matchup. And SGA ended with 23 points. Chet Holmgren ended with 21 points and 16 rebounds. And Jalen Williams ended the game with 24 points. And again, that's something that was expected. Now, the Grizzlies, they ended up beating the Magic. I thought the Orlando Magic were going to beat the Memphis Grizzlies in this matchup, but that did not be the case. That was not the case at all. Paolo Banchero ended with 16 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Not a very dominant performance as I expected coming in from Paolo. Jalen Suggs ended with 21 points, 6 for 17 from the field, and Franz Wagner ended with 23 points. But on Memphis' side, I mean, one of the key takeaways in this game that I got was that Zach Edey ended up hitting a three-pointer. which is crazy, right? I did not expect him to take a three and let alone make the three, but I believe now he's shooting 100% from the three. Don't quote me on that. Santi Aldama for the Memphis Grizzlies ended with 22 points. Ja Morant ended with 16 points, and Jay Huff ended 7 of 9 from the field with 18 points. And again, I'm going to skim through a lot of these because we are low on time. Now, Timberwolves, they ended up beating the Raptors. I expected that outcome. They won 112 to 101. And then the Spurs ended up beating the Houston Rockets. I expected Houston to end up winning this game, but that was not the case. Victor Wembanyama ended with 29 points, 7 rebounds. Jeremy Sochan ended with 17 points, 12 rebounds. Chris Paul ended with 3 points, but recorded 9 assists along with that, which is really the big reason why they got him on the roster. And let's see, who else played well? Keldon Johnson ended with 16 points off the bench, along with 8 rebounds. Now, Jalen Green played really well in this game, 29 points, 5 assists, 6 rebounds, but it was ever so slightly, it wasn't enough. Sengun did not play that well in this matchup at all. Victor really took that beating that Sengun gave him last year personally. And let's see, what did he shoot from the field? He shot 2 of 8 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3 with 6 points. And Reed Shepherd ended the game 0 for 2 along with 0 for 1 from 3, which again, not ideal. And Rookie of the Year is still up for grabs. Now, yesterday's game, I got practically everything wrong for yesterday's game aside from the Thunder beating the Hawks. The Thunder ended up winning 128 to 104. Trae Young ended with 10 turnovers, which was a very inefficient and non-productive performance coming in from Young, which is, he has these games from time to time, but I will say that the Thunder's defense is not something that should be made fun of. SGA ended this game with 35 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists, along with 3 blocks and 3 steals. Like, this defense was haggling them the entire game. Now, the rest of the games that I got wrong. The Pacers ended up losing to the 76ers. I expected the 76ers to lose in this matchup, but Maxey scored 45 points, and he took 32 shots. Again, he turned into Kobe Bryant in this season. And this game also went into overtime. Caleb Martin ended the game 6 for 16 with 17 points. And on the Pacers side, Tyrese Halliburton, he ended the game with 22 points, but he shot 8 for 18 from the field. Siakam ended with 17 points, 7 for 11. And really just, it was an unexpected loss that I thought. And not to mention the Pelicans, they also ended up losing, and they lost to the Portland Trailblazers, another unexpected loss. Fernie Simmons ended with 27 points. DeAndre Ayton ended with 17 points and 12 rebounds. And Jeremy Grant ended with 28 points. Pelicans, CJ McCollum ended with 27 points. Zion Williamson only had 14, and Ingram only had 14 as well. And when you have 2 players that have 27 points or more, it's really not ideal, not to mention the rest of the starting lineup having double figures with that as well. Now, another game that really shocked me, the Clippers, they ended up beating the Golden State Warriors. Andrew Wiggins ended with 29 points. Steph Curry ended with only 18 points. And on the Clippers side, Zubac ended with 23 and 18. James Harden ended with 23 and 11 assists. Norman Powell ended with 20 points, and Derrick Jones Jr. ended with 18 points. Now, the final game and the most shocking game, the Nets ended up beating the Bucks in a blowout. The Nets ended up winning 115 to 102 in this matchup. Cam Thomas ended with 32 points. Dennis Schroeder ended with 29 points. Cameron Johnson ended with 13 points. And really, the Bucks, Giannis ended with 22 points and 12 rebounds, and Damian Lillard ended with 21 points, but the rest of the lineup just wasn't there and wasn't really producing, aside from Bobby Portis, who ended with 16 points and 10 rebounds. I was very shocked at the outcome of this game, and excuse me, it really, for the Bucks, it really all fell apart in the fourth quarter, where they got outscored 32 to 24 in the fourth quarter, which is honestly the most typical Darvin Ham / Doc Rivers situation ever. So that's all that I have for the weekend and the weekend recap. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the 5th segment where I go over the NBA power rankings of the last week. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned. And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fifth segment, we are going to be looking at the NBA Power Rankings. So this is obviously just, going into this next week based off of the games that happened last week. So let's actually go ahead and jump right in simply because we are a little bit short on time. So number one in the power rankings is obviously going to be the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics, they are the best team in the NBA until proven otherwise, and winning 3 straight games, regardless of how bad the competition really was for the Boston Celtics, it doesn't matter. This is a good start. Jason Tatum is having an MVP caliber season. Makes total sense why the Celtics are number one. I have no oppositions there. Next, OKC. Once again, another team that has started 3-0 and has they actually beat the Denver Nuggets, which you can argue is much more competition than what the Celtics have had to beat. But again, until the Celtics have proven otherwise that they are not the best player in the NBA, they are going to remain at number one throughout the entirety of the season. Again, until proven otherwise. But based off of these previous performances coming in from OKC, it's not like that the Thunder have been playing bad teams or have been playing mediocre teams. I will say that the Thunder have been phenomenal in this last few weeks, beating Denver. They ended up beating the Bulls as well. And then in the back-to-back against the Hawks, they ended up beating them as well. So really have no problem with this. And as you can see from here, they won each of their first 3 games by at least 15 points, which again, very, very impressive. Now, why they're not at number one compared to the Celtics, despite the fact that the Celtics have faced weaker competition, again, until proven otherwise, that's going to be where they stay. The Lakers, they jump all the way from 19th at the start of the season all the way up to number 3. This is beautiful. This is what is expected from LA. This is just the start of this is a huge start for JJ Redick, a fantastic start. Really just shows how great this lineup really was and how bad Darvin Ham as a coach really was. Now, I have no problem with them being ranked at number 3, especially with how they've been playing. Now, they're expected to play the Suns again today at 10 o'clock, but this time in Phoenix's home court. So we'll see how that goes, but I really have no doubt that they could end up being 4-0. But again, anything can happen in this game. Like, Phoenix could start making shots that we really don't expect them to usually make. It really comes down to just how good Devin Booker and Kevin Durant can perform in this matchup. But alas, I have no problem with the Lakers being ranked at 3. Cleveland as well, another team that's 3-0. So the top 4 teams on this power ranking have not lost a game yet. Very, very good list so far, very well respected. With, again, the Cavs and their schedule, I will admit, is rather much simpler and much easier, the start of their schedule, than any other team so far. I mean, they ended up playing the Cavs. They ended up playing the Raptors in the first game. So, not really that good of a team, but at the same time, not that bad of a team either. And then the next 2 games were against the worst teams in the Western Conference, in the Eastern Conference, the Pistons and the Wizards, which is a big reason as to why they're at number 4 and why they're not ranked higher compared to the Lakers, who in their in their seasons and in their matchups so far, they've played much more significant competition. I mean, they played the Kings, they played the Suns, and they played the Timberwolves. All 3 of those teams are in the playoff race, and they were in the playoff race last season, so makes sense that that team is ranked higher. And along with the Boston Celtics, while I will admit that the Celtics also had a rather easy schedule going into this, again, one of the big reasons why they are the best team is because of that blowout win to the Knicks, and until it's proven otherwise. So, again, no problem with this list so far. Next team, the Knicks. Of course, you have to put the Knicks on this list, especially with their dominant performance coming in against the Pacers, holding Halliburton to 0 points, and just having that revenge game after how they got bounced from the postseason. Definitely a well-deserved spot on this list. Having them at number 5, they are arguably the second best team in the Eastern Conference. No problem with this list whatsoever as of right now. Next, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, the Timberwolves being ranked at number 6 might not seem that might not seem like they should be ranked at number 6, but again, I have no real problem with them being ranked at number 6 at all. Now, they started out with a rather disappointing loss in LA, but then they ended up beating Sacramento, and then they also ended up beating the Raptors. Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards, ended up becoming the first Timberwolves duo to end with 30 points or more. And the fact that Anthony Edwards was unable to do that with Karl Anthony Towns speaks volume and their production so far. So really, and not to mention, like you could see right here on the bottom, essentially they ended up losing on a 27-6 Lakers run in the second quarter, in which the Wolves' defense in zone and in man-to-man, and especially in transition, were just not that good. And that was really the only bad thing that has happened with the Timberwolves so far. So I have no problem with them being ranked at number 6. Next is number 7, Phoenix Suns. Again, this is another team that ended up losing to the Lakers. But aside from that, they've been very prolific and they've been very efficient in these games. In the first game that they played against the Clippers, Kevin Durant forced overtime, and the Clippers ended up choking the game because Harden missed a free throw, which would have sent it into another overtime. But aside from that, this is just, I totally agree with this so far. And again, this is rather early in the season, so there's not really much to really go off of. But so far, having them at 7, no big deal. Dallas Mavericks, again, this is a team that I expected to be a little bit higher on this list going into the season. But based off of their performances and based off of what happened against the Phoenix Suns, I have no problem with them being ranked just below Phoenix. What team is ranked? Okay. Clippers, on the other hand, making a jump all the way to 9 from being ranked 20 is a huge booster for the Clippers' morale. And the fact that they don't even have Kawhi Leonard on this team so far, it really goes to show, is this going to be a prime James Harden season? Are we finally going to see James Harden back in his prime once again and back into his scoring ways? Not entirely sure. Again, I'm not really how should I say, explaining myself as well as I'd like, but that is mainly the big reason why I'm not explaining myself as well as I'd like is because of the lack of time and because there is so much that I could say about each and every single one of these teams. I don't want to dwindle on all of them whatsoever, but I will dwindle on this pick. Having a team that is 0-2 be ranked at number 10 in the power rankings is unacceptable. I definitely feel like Memphis should be ranked higher. The Orlando Magic should also be ranked higher. Maybe even Golden State. Maybe not Philly. Philly should not be ranked higher than this team. Not Pacers. Not the Miami Heat. And maybe not the Pelicans. So, right now, with this standing for the Denver Nuggets, I think that Memphis, Orlando, and Golden State, not in that order, they should be ranked higher and they should be in the top 10 at the very least. If you're going to put any team in the top 10, it should be one of those 3 teams, just based off of team record and what they've been able to do so far in this season. Because as of right now, the Denver Nuggets, I don't think they should be in the top 10. I understand it might be a rough start, but I don't agree with it. I really don't agree with them being in this number 10 spot. They haven't won a single game. How is it that you can put a team that hasn't won a single game in the top 10 in power rankings as opposed to Orlando Magic, who have already won 2 games, and they lost the last game in a rather shocking manner. I can't even lie. I didn't expect them to lose to the Grizzlies, but aside from that, it's not like they've been playing really all that bad. And this might have something to do with who they're scheduled to play in this next coming week. The Nuggets, they are scheduled to play Toronto, Brooklyn, Minnesota, and Utah. So this team is really going to be the only competitive one. Toronto, Brooklyn, and Utah, I feel like they're going to easily beat. And that's probably a big reason why they're at number 10. Compared to Memphis, who's going to be... Actually, no. Memphis should probably be at number 10 now, just given who they're going to play in this week. Chicago and Brooklyn, that's going to be rather simple. Milwaukee seems to be struggling a little bit, so I do think that they can definitely prevail in this matchup. And with Philly, if they don't have Joel Embiid, it's all dependent on whether or not they have Joel Embiid or Paul George in this game. They could beat them. If they don't have them, then they could beat them. And even if they do have them, I'm not entirely sure what to expect from Joel Embiid and Paul George yet. Now, with the Orlando Magic, Indiana, Chicago, Cleveland, and Dallas, I will say that maybe, having them a little bit lower makes sense just based off of the fact that this team is pretty good. rather good, I should say. It's still up for grabs. This team is also really decent. This team is really good, and this team is also really good. So don't have a problem with that. This one, however, the Warriors should probably be ranked a little bit higher just based off of their opponents. They're probably going to win out in this season, in this week, excuse me. And maybe if I were to redo this, I think I would put the Warriors at number 12. Then I would put the Grizzlies up here. And then underneath it at 11, I would put the Orlando Magic. And then over at the in this 13th spot, I would put the Denver Nuggets. But as of right now with this list so far, I really have no problems with the rest of these teams on this list, especially with the Lakers being a top 3 team in the NBA. No problems with that. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of the top 10 teams in the power rankings. But that's all that I really have for this segment. That's it. And thank you so much for tuning into the show. And really, that's all that I got for you guys. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether you guys have a hot take, whether you guys have a burning question, something you've been dying to share. We are all ears. If you really want your comment or question to get noticed, then I recommend using Super Chat. Just click on the $sign below the chat box, and you can send in your comments and or donations. That way, they really help the show. They make it much more interactive between myself and you guys. And if that doesn't work, then you can always use the link displayed below the, not the link displayed below the ticker. You can always use Super Chat. You just click on the $sign below the chat box, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. And either or is going to get your comments featured on the next show. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I am your host, Nelson. And actually, before I conclude, let me go over quickly the games that are going to happen today, because there are a lot of them. So, the Knicks, they're going to match up against the Cavs. I think the Knicks are going to end up winning in this matchup against the Cavs. They play at 7:30 in Madison Square Garden, so I picked the Knicks in that game. The Mavericks play the Jazz. I think the Mavericks are going to easily beat the Jazz at home. Lakers are going to play the Suns. I think it's going to be a close one, but I feel like the Lakers are going to end up winning in this matchup. I have huge faith in LeBron. The Magic against the Pacers. I think the Magic are going to end up prevailing in this matchup against the Pacers. The Heat going up against the Pistons. I think the Heat are going to win. Now, the Hawks going up against the Wizards. I think the Hawks are going to end up winning in this matchup. A battle of the two French stars that got picked top 2 in the draft. Probably not going to be as action-packed between those two stars as you might think, but who knows? That's probably the storyline going in. The Bucks are going to match up against the Celtics. I think the Celtics are easily going to beat the Bucks. They play at home, and I don't think the Bucks will have an answer for Boston. The Nuggets, they're going to play the Raptors. I think the Nuggets are going to win this game, and I know that I picked the Nuggets last 2 times, and both times they ended up disappointing me. I hope that doesn't happen here in this matchup. Now, the Spurs, they play the Rockets again, and I want to pick Houston. I really do. You know what? We're doing it. I'm picking Houston in this matchup. I think they're going to learn from their matchup against the Spurs last go-round, and they're going to end up improving. Now, the Grizzlies, they go up against the Bulls. I'm picking the Grizzlies in this matchup. And then finally, the Kings are going up against the Trailblazers. I am going to pick the Kings in this matchup. The Kings do play at home, and I think they're going to figure it out in this game. So those are my picks for tonight. And thank you so much for tuning in. That's all that I got. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.